The Money Show. Personal finance.
You better have some facts, Warren Ingram from Galileo Capital. Women are better investors than men. Explain yourself.
Yeah, they are, and I looked at as many different studies as I could find to try and sort of defend the male side of the species here, but unfortunately there aren't any good ones. and I work in an office largely dominated by women, so I'm losing all around here. No, so there've been quite a few studies going back. There was a seminal one done in 2001, and all the way from then until now, studies trying to understand. Not necessarily just always why, but the actual impact. And what you find is a couple of things. One, women definitely are better savers than men. They save, it doesn't sound like a lot, but over a long period of time it becomes a lot. They save 0.4% per year more than men do. And then depending on the study, the actual investment performance, the investment selections made by women range from about 1% a year better, again over a long period of time, that's a huge number, to down to 0.4% a year better. So depending on what study and what length of time, that's the range. And no, the studies weren't done by bias groups. These were academics and interestingly some financial services companies that looked at their own clients to see what the results were, and it's consistent. Unfortunately, as men, we're not wired to be the smart investors here.
It also goes to the work that Muhammad Yunus did in Pakistan in terms of lending money, microloans to women. His thesis there was that women would borrow small amounts of money. They would spend that money to develop and grow a small business. They would pay back their loans on time and in full so they could get the next tranche of money as they were growing their businesses. Men were less reliable, and I'm being generous here, when it came to getting a weekly pay packet or taking a loan, because men were less careful with the money they borrowed.
Absolutely, and I think if you look at the sort of hard wiring that we have, if we go all the way back to sort of to cavemen days, and you look at the one thing, testosterone, which is might be great for outrunning dangerous animals or hunting and fighting, etc. Unfortunately, is really bad for making investment decisions. And it's what it does is it compels men to do something, to take action, to be active, and unfortunately in the investment world, activity is actually a really negative thing. So for example, if we just talk about shares, the less you buy and sell shares in a portfolio, the better. So over long periods of time, Warren Buffett always says, if you can limit yourself to 5 investment decisions over your lifetime, you're doing well.
Okay, I mean that's a big call, but that's Warren Buffett. He can do these things.
That's Warren Buffett, and I think there's actually a lady that wrote a book that said Warren Buffett invests like a woman.
Warren. No, the book was Warren Buffett invests like a girl, and why you should too. I've got it in my bookcase somewhere. I haven't read it yet, but that's the title.
So why is that? If we look at it, men. Well, turn around and said women trade 27% less. In other words, a quarter of the time they will do, they just won't take action. And it's not that they're not applying their minds or that they're afraid to take action. They simply will look through whatever's going on in the moment and not fall to the noise as much as men would do. And what's interesting is you can go through the industry, the investment industry itself as well. There's a hedge fund index in the US that tracks professional female hedge funds, and it tracks the performance of those hedge fund investors relative to the general hedge fund index. And even there, the hedge fund managers do better than men, not by a huge amount, but 0.2% a year. And again, you compound that and add it to large amounts of money, and it's a big deal.
Now, okay, women are better at investing than men are, right? We've got the science, we've got the facts that prove that. Now, why is it that the fund management industry, certainly in South Africa, is so male dominated?
Well, that's yeah. I was going to say, you and I have both been at large numbers of investment talks and seminars and conferences, and it's always astonishing to me that if I look around the room, the room is inevitably dominated by men and typically men over 50. And if you look at the youngsters coming into the industry, again, largely male. And I think it's probably a function of a few things. One, if you really want to be simplistic, if you go all the way back to when I was at school, it was sort of a myth that that boys are better at maths than girls, and so I guess girls were then encouraged to do other things other than maths. I mean, obviously it's absolute nonsense, but the point is, it had some sort of cultural validity, and therefore it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think I think those sort of inherent biases don't go away in a decade. I mean, I think they go away over long periods of time. I also think that if you look at some of these studies that have been done, women are typically a lot less confident in their ability to make smart money decisions, and I think that also goes to the step before. When they're sitting in tertiary education, making decisions about their careers, that they're less likely then to choose the investment industry, especially the fund management industry or the stockbroking industry. I guess because what they know is if they've spent any time as an intern in any of those organizations, they know that they are male dominated, and if you ever spend time on a stockbroking environment, you'll know that's probably the
can be
most
rough.
male.
It can be rough.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a nice way to say that, but yeah, it can be rough and very male dominated. So I think there are few organizations that that are set up to kind of differentiate. And obviously we're generalizing. I guess I'm generalizing massively, but when I sit in these big functions and look at my industry peers, then the numbers tell me that that generalization is real.
No, okay, sorry, yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, but my question is then if what you say is true and the science points towards greater success amongst female money managers and that women are better at this stuff than men, then you solve your investment dilemma if you want to go into money being run by a human being and not into an index fund, by handing your money to a female fund manager.
Yeah, don't hand your women to a fund manager.
No.
So I think I guess that's true, and I think the issue then in from a South African point of view, there are very few, as we just said, there are very few female money managers. So I think it's not to say again that women are perfect fund managers. I mean, we're talking about
an average, yes,
a marginal improvement. The difference. And so the lesson I'm taking from this is actually that you probably want to do one of two things: either that you want if you are a female money manager and you want to do it as a business, doing it as a collective seems to work better. So it's interesting that women perform better in groups than they do individually, or you want them to perform in teams with their male colleagues. So I think if you can get the right balance between sort of the more impulsive side of the men, where they want to trade more consistently.
Okay. Here's a challenge, Warren Ingram. I'm going to invite our listeners this evening. If you are part of investment club, and my sense of investment clubs is there are very few mixed investment clubs. It's an excuse for men to get together and talk investments, and it's an excuse for women to get together and talk about investments. I don't think I've ever come across many mixed investment clubs, but I would like to invite an investment club of women onto the Money Show and an investment club of men onto the Money Show. We can get just like a team playoff. I don't know how it's going to work, but all I can tell you is if you contact me via my Twitter account, @BruceBusiness, if you're part of an investment club, either a male-dominated or a female-dominated investment club, I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to talk about what you do and how you do it on the radio. And I think that could be quite fun. If anybody's interested in participating, we'll work out a mechanism as to how we do it, Warren, but let's test this theory.
I love it, and I was going to say perhaps just that the club should have been around for at least 5 years.
Okay,
so at least in the investment world, that does count for a sort of track record and not just sheer luck then.
Okay, so you've got to be prepared to come on the radio, come into the studio. You can bring your club members, unless you've got a club of 500 people, in which case it's going to be crowded. But maybe a couple of club members, and maybe you can come by yourself and tell us about your investment club and how you started it and how you choose the shares, the investments that you make, and what your performance has been. And I want you to be honest about it. And I want to compare what a randomly chosen investment club run by women and a randomly chosen investment club run by men, how it would work. At Bruce Business on social media. Love for you to do that. Yeah, you up for that, Warren? I think it'd be quite an interesting exercise.
I mean, I love it. It's one of the questions we get quite often. Is how do we do it, and what is it? What is a good investment club? What are the suggestions? So if we can get some people that have done it successfully, it will be great for many listeners, I think.
I think so, absolutely. Because investment clubs, I mean, let's touch on that just for a moment. It is critical that anybody who goes into investing, and it can be a daunting thing to go into initially, especially if you're not used to it. It's a lovely introduction into the world of investing. It might be the first part, and maybe you stay part of an investment club and then invest your own money on the side of that as well, if you choose to do that. But it's a great way of learning from people who've been around the block once or twice.
Absolutely, and I think what's interesting in South Africa is we have a tradition of stokvels in South Africa, and those are there are investment clubs in their purest form, and in the early days stokvels were almost just savings vehicles, but they've certainly evolved into fully fledged investment clubs now, and I think that there's some really big ones out there, and I think for people that are interested in investment clubs, the Americans they love publishing really quality free information on the net. So I always say that when someone says to me, I want to do an investment club, I think it's a great idea, and I think if you are new and inexperienced and lacking in some confidence, to at least share the workload of the research responsibilities over a group of you is important, and then getting the disciplines right where you hold each other to account is important. And then you need some kind of just a game plan, some sort of sets of rules about how does the money get in, and what are the rules for taking money out again if someone wants to leave, and don't be afraid to research, because I think they're actually sort of investment club associations, and they provide these, they call them constitutions, or template constitutions that you can use for your own club. And to me, it's kind of a form of money marriage, isn't it? I mean, you're putting money together with a group of people that you may or may not know very well, and it's great when things are going well, but you have to plan for when things are going not so well, and that's where the constitution kicks in.
I've sat through one or two investment club meetings on invitation, and it's been fascinating. It's been an eye-opening experience, and everybody starts the evening off very seriously talking about the merits of investing and start talking about shares, and then 2 or 3 glasses of wine later, it's not really that important anymore. And then the bickering starts, and then the factions break up, and then you have 2 or 3 groups of people talking, and they may or may not be talking about investing, but it's just not the investing part. You really shouldn't combine your investment club with wine either.
No, I've never seen alcohol and investments go well together unless you're investing in alcohol businesses. And I think also try to combine your team. If you want your investment team with different skills. Infuse them with people that have different backgrounds and different industries, because then you really get value. I think if I often see sort of youngsters that are all in the tech industry together, that they potentially work in the same company or whatever, getting together, and their experience is then very narrow to one field, and that's okay, but it doesn't help them understand other industries and other ways of doing business. And if you look at the great big investment houses, that's what they've done incredibly well. They recruit people from a range of industries and a range of backgrounds, and that's what gives them an edge over their peers. And I think investment clubs, there's no reason why it shouldn't work there as well.
Okay, but let's do investment clubs. I'm not sure when we'll get around to it, Warren. It depends on the response we get from members of investment clubs. But if you are in an investment club, we'd love to hear from you. The way you do that is to contact me via social media on Twitter at Bruce Business. Let me know that you're keen to participate, and we'll work out a mechanism that suits everybody. We'll find a date that suits everybody, and I think we can have a lovely chat about investment clubs. I think that'd be so useful. I think everybody should be part of an investment club. Warren Ingram from Galileo Capital.